Hey everybody, Jason here. How's everybody doing? Hopefully you're doing fantastic this week. So in this week's snippet, I'm going to talk about how I conceptualize a shot. So one of our iAnimate instructors, Angie Jones, has this really fun shot that she gives to her students. And it's sort of like a smaller kind of extracurricular type shot. And it's called the sneeze, right? And I thought to myself, I've never actually animated a sneeze in any of the feature films that I've actually done. I thought it'd be a really fun thing to try and figure out. So when I'm trying to conceptualize a shot, what I try to do is figure out like a beginning, middle, and end. I try to think of a scenario that will make the sneeze sort of funny, right? So like instead of just like having the character sneeze, like what could he be doing that a sneeze could be very unfortunate, right? And I thought like doing something a little bit delicate, right? So as if like he's putting together a matchstick puzzle or like a little kind of tiny detail model or a house of cards, you know? And I thought like a house of cards might be kind of fun because it'll be number one, it'll be kind of easy to set up, right? As far as like modeling goes, because I want to just keep this as bare minimum as possible, so I don't have to model like a crazy prop or anything, right? So what I'm trying to do is figure out the scenario and figure out like the type of action that I'm going to do, right? Now, when I'm trying to think of the type of action, I know the main action will be the sneeze. That'll be the broadest thing in the shot, right? That should be the thing that sort of sets up the punchline, right? So for everything that comes before that, I want to try to contain so that we get some texture in the timing, right? So when I'm trying to conceptualize a shot, I do it like in rough 2D kind of form. So with this character here, this is Dennis, or like he's kind of like a dinosaur, dragon, devil type character. And I thought like if he sneezes, it'd be fun, like if an actual flame came out of his mouth, you know, and to sort of burn like this house of cards, right? So I thought like that might be like the punchline, right? So when I'm trying to set him up, like I try to keep him sort of playful, right? So maybe just kind of keeping him wide-eyed like this. And when I'm trying to draw this guy, like I'm trying to keep my drawings as simple as possible, right? So like for this character, like for his head, just a sphere like this, right? And then like his whole shape is sort of like this, right? That kind of thing, right? And then his legs sort of stick out from under there, right? So imagine like he's kind of sitting on the ground here. I'm trying to do that, right? Keep him kind of flat on the ground like that. And then his arms sort of stick out of that shape, right? Like this, either side. And then for his nose, I try to just keep it simple, like just like try to get a little muzzle on there, sort of halfway down the sphere, right? So imagine that little shape there. And then his mouth is sort of like this, right? So it kind of comes out of that shape. And then he's got a big sort of chin area like this, right? So I try to keep this as simple as possible, like, but try to keep it sort of on model. Now, I do this for most shots that I don't really know exactly what I'm going to do. Like on certain movies, like for example, Megamind, there was this sequence in there where Minion, the character Minion, was going to greet Megamind as he came back to the cave, and he was talking to all his mini bots and stuff. And it was kind of like this little mini sequence where we don't want to show the relationship between Minion and Megamind, but Megamind to the little mini bots. And like the director wasn't 100% sure exactly what to do there, so I basically roughed it in 2D, right? And this way I can play around. I'm not possessive over the drawings because I'm drawing them very, very quickly and very roughly, very simply. But I can also play around, right? Because the drawings don't really take that long. Instead of actually posing out really complicated poses in Maya, which could take you an hour or so, like for each pose. And I need to be able to conceptualize this thing so that I can be free to let the shot evolve, right? Like to let the shot like play, you know, so that I can kind of go, oh, what about this or what about that? And then sort of when I can see the playing 24 frames per second, that way I can actually edit things out or try different things, right? So for this particular shot, I'm thinking more like a story artist slash animator, right? So I'm trying to let myself think about like what would happen realistically. Let me delete that little drawing that I just did there. So when I'm doing this, I've got like the cards right here. And I'm going to show the little cards right here. That's the house of cards. So very roughly, just kind of throw that in there. And I've got my two last cards that he's going to make the last house, right? So you imagine like he's been at this for quite some time. But I try to think, like, what would the character be doing, right? So imagine like, okay, so he's looking at the cards he just did. He's picked up the last two cards. So he looks at his cards, keeping him kind of childlike, you know. So I'm thinking like, oh, this would be fun because his feet are kind of in front of him. So he might have like this sort of playful secondary action with his feet, you know, as he's looking at his last two cards, sort of like this, right? And then he's going to gently kind of reach over to put them at the top, right? So he's got to look at the tower and say, okay, so I'm going to be putting them right there at the top. And then I'm going to start to reach forward. Now, even at this stage, I'm thinking like, okay, I need to break this up. So I can't just kind of bring both arms together because in animation, we want to break up the timing. So I'm thinking like, okay, let me start to reach forward with the outside hand, the one that's in silhouette first. That way we can kind of see that action and then let the other hand come out to follow. So sort of like a lead and follow type action, right? And like to make it feel even more delicate, I'm gonna maybe stick out his little pinky right here, right? So we got that little action right there. And you can see it very, very simple, right? And even maybe stick out his tongue, you know, like the way little kids concentrate when they're drawing, they're like, they got their tongue sticking out, right? So they're really enjoying it, right? So we might have this. Now this might be a little bit too far, but it's okay because this is just a concept, right? I don't have to stay super on model here. It's just enough to tell the story, enough that I can kind of show this to a director and say, this is the type of action that I'm going for, right? And this way, like if they say, well, why don't you just take that part out or don't make it as broad, maybe just stick the hand out, like get the cards closer to them. I can easily do that when I get to the Maya stage, right? So we get the cards on there. Now, what I'm trying to do is set myself up for that inhale, right? So when I'm acting out like a sneeze, like I'm thinking like it's a chew, right? So it's like there's almost like a build to it, right? So I figured like the most inopportune time would be like this part where he's just about to make contact with the house of cards, right? So that's where like I'm gonna have like the first, you know, like so his eyes like from going like from that squint concentrate to like, you know, and then from there he'll go, you know, and then this will be sort of like the settle and then go into the next inhale, right? And I want to go as sort of as broad as I possibly can, like as far as like, you know, making sure that we really make it clear that he's got that, uh, that inhale, right? And then for here, I don't want to just go straight into the sneeze because that's what's expected, right? That's what you kind of feel like, oh well, he's got a sneeze right now, like, and then what's going to happen? Like the cards are just going to kind of blow away, right? But then I thought like maybe we'll just have him settle out of it, so it might be just like a sigh of relief in here, you know. You know, maybe a little blink, right? Maybe wipe his nose, right? Rip across like that. And then I can think about like, okay, so how broad do I want to make that? Do I want to, you know, do like a little bewitched kind of, you know, that kind of thing? Or do the wipe first and then do something like that? Just to make it clear that he's kind of wiped the sneeze away. He's rubbed his nose. He's good now. We're all set, right? And then he looks back at his cards and then go back into a fast sneeze, like so that it takes you sort of a little bit by surprise, right? So I want to go nice and broad here with the mouth, you know, and this one would be a little faster. It'd be like, ah, chew, right? And then for the sneeze part, I want to take him off the ground. I want to like get some distance between him and the ground, but I don't want to like bring him back up to his feet. I just want to make sure that he actually raises off the ground, like so. So I think keeping him sort of solid in here. I was before, you can see like a little mark right here. I was kind of playing around with the idea that his foot would actually come out this way and this foot will come out that way, but it felt just a little too much. Like I felt like I was just more distracted by the feet coming out rather than the attention going here. So I thought like, no, let's just keep him as a nice solid shape. So when I'm thinking this, I'm thinking like the leg would be here, maybe the toes here. And I might actually play, you know, one or the other. I've got two choices here where I can actually bring the legs sort of outside the arms, you know, so like this, right? So keeping this on the inside and the leg on the outside, which might be fun, right? So just kind of doing that. So still keeping the actual shape, but now we kind of have this little bit more of a distance between the leg and the arms rather than trying to tuck his knees in and keep the arms out. Because that might be fun just to sort of contract his arms a little bit more, or retract his arms, I should say, right? And then we have the sneeze, chew, and then the landing, and then he's got to look up, right, to be nice and sad. Now, I don't want the shot to go on for a minute long, and you could easily milk this stuff. So I gave myself like the maximum 240 frames, which is exactly 10 seconds, right? So I think like just seeing the cards basically, right here, and then they sort of go all charred, like, so they're going to just burn into a group of ashes right here, right? And then from there, then they'll fall, right? So I think like maybe even let's take this level in flipbook here and just sort of have that, maybe hold on the ashes here, like for maybe, well, actually maybe, I think maybe we even hold on this one. And then this is where they start to fall. So this should be fairly fast, right? So that, we get to see the charred cards, and then we see the ashes fall nice and quick, and then the last thing would be, so even like when the ashes fall, like maybe they break apart, like this, and then they fall a couple of frames later, right? So we have this, like we still have the ashes there, and then these ashes are just sort of settling right here, right? So you just have a little bit more of a settle, right? And then that will be our shot, right? So let's play it and see if everything sort of reads as a shot. So like I say, like I'm thinking more of a story artist rather than smooth animation at this stage. The animation like will come later, right? All right. So when I'm thinking animation time, so what I'll be doing now, like even though this is going to be a fairly cartoony type shot, because I always want to marry the style of animation to the style of the character, and the character is very cartoony. I don't want to make this hyper realistic, right? Because it might look like a guy in a sort of a dragon suit, right? So I want to keep this nice and cartoony. So everything is going to be nice and caricatured, have nice silhouettes, nice motion, nice timing to it. And then once I get into the actual acting choices and the time that I'm going to spend, like in the little subtleties in between, I'm still going to shoot live action reference, because what's going to happen is I'm going to find like some subtle ways, of doing this kind of stuff that I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to key out. So once I do some live action reference, not that I'm going to use a verbatim, like exactly as it is in the live action reference, but it'll give me some ideas of sort of the timing of that. Not this kind of thing, so after I do the wipe, maybe it's that, maybe it's not like just one wipe, maybe it's like a couple of wipes like this, and then doing that, and then back into like going to go for the second time to put the cards on the top of the house of cards, right? And that way, once I've got the live action reference and I've got this, then I can sort of combo both of them into the actual scene in Maya. Now, even from this, so this very, very rough pass, right? I know the staging, I know the type of posing that I'm going to do, but I also know technically what I'm going to have to do as far as these cards go. Because if I just constrain the cards exactly as is, I'm stuck with that hand placement. And I may want to be able to shuffle them around. I may want to like, let them kind of go a little bit loose, maybe grab from the top of the card instead of the side of the card, so I don't want to be stuck just to that one spot. So what I'm probably going to do is group the card, right? And then constrain the group to his hand. And that way I've got like the actual card itself to sort of be free inside of his hands, right? Because, sometimes like you may want to like sort of bring the cards like to a better spot, like maybe grab to the very corner from the sides. And you can, once you're holding something in your hand, you can shift it around, right? So like even this, like I might want to do something like that, like to kind of shift the card around on his fingers. And if I constrain it directly to his hand, it's going to be stuck there, right? Because all the translates and rotates will be locked. But if I group it first, or set up a locator type system, then I'm able to keep like the actual card itself. And then I can do this sort of thing, where I can change the hand position without it affecting the animation, right? And then once I've figured that out, now it's just about like keying it out, making the poses feel as clean as possible. And then when I'm doing that, I'm using Maya almost like a cleanup tool rather than a roughing it out, like because I already know what the idea is and I know basically the posing that I want to try. So once I get in there, I'll be looking at these poses and I'll be trying to get the spirit of each one of these poses into Maya. Now, when I'm approaching this, I'm not going to go, frame one, frame two, frame three. I'll try to find the main storytelling poses. So like this would be a pose, right? This would be a pose. This one here is almost the same as the very first one. So I'll probably start with that, copy that to that next pose, shift them forward a little bit, try to keep them contained, right? And then look for those opposing actions. So like if he's looking up, maybe I'll bring the cards, so he's looking like this. And maybe I'll bring as his head comes forward, I'll bring the cards back. So I get that opposing action, right? So not everything is going to go in the same direction at the same time. I'll think between those poses, I'll want to try to find like those little subtle things that will help it feel more natural.